Hi friends, in Planet Earth Dating it's Monday, August 21st, 2017. We are filming during what is almost a complete solar eclipse in North America and here in north central Florida where we are. And we are approaching the peak of the eclipse. The reason we're filming now is that we have received questions from a very persistent and appropriate young man who is trying to make a difference in the world. Somebody is shouting, what are you doing? I'm sorry, I thought we were explaining what we were doing. We are trying to transmit to wiser minds above, higher minds above, some questions that are coming out of this dimension, out of the ground zero dimension, planet Earth, North America, the year 2017. There are questions, and they're shouting in response to this, what kind of questions? What do you mean by that? Lots of different people are shouting different things. And one way of describing this person would be as a volunteer from the studio audience. That's sometimes how people who request healing sessions are labeled when there's doubt from wiser minds above as to whether or not it's wise to work with a person such as that. And what do I know? I know that in those cases, even higher minds than the arguers almost invariably say, look, this is a volunteer from the studio audience. We want to hear from other voices. We want to know what's actually going on. So, and now they're arguing.
That's true.
I'm sorry. Do you really want to know what's actually going on down here? Let's bifurcate. All of us who really want to know what's actually going on to the search for truth's central axis. All others flung away. Somebody's asking what we think we're doing, and a bifurcation is simply a way of activating the law of attraction and repulsion, where what we are doing is aligning with that that we're seeking, and to the best of our abilities, and pushing away things that are an even worse match for that. So when we align, all of us who really want to know what's actually going on, people who are not as interested in what's actually going on as the host lives are moved away. People who are not as interested in what's actually going on as the souls in all dimensions are moved away. So what this does is clear an interdimensional column of clear space, and that is what we think we're doing, clearing an interdimensional column of clear space, leaving those who most want to know what's actually going on in their respective dimensions. Why do you ask? As always, our foundational background intention is to do what is ours to do right now in all dimensions, to manifest an actual divine plan for all dimensions, for all categories of sentience, and to do that no matter what anyone else does or doesn't do, since that's what our soul contracts commit us to doing. And with that, the formally videoed portions of today's efforts begin. Alright, we have a little bit more clear space, so now we're going to try again. We have these questions from this very persistent and very appropriate young man, and we would like to present them to wiser minds above and see what the wiser minds have to say. Is this acceptable?
I see nodding heads.
I see a thumbs up. I see many gestures that say, yes, come on.
Yes.
I'm supposed to explain something, and that's that we have the opportunity today to work with many different kinds of out-of-body presences by our way of defining things, less dense presences. For example, in the session just ended, we were working with somebody who had recently been in human form in ground zero and is now transitioned on. Some might call him a dead guy.
That's true.
And as soon as we finish filming, basically we have our next client, and his guides are what I think these presences think of as rank and file guides.
Yes, that's true.
And we have the vaunted Vanovanovs, who really consider themselves to be best of the best, and by many measures we would agree with them.
That's true.
And we also have the light beings who are, we have called the minors for many years. That is how they identified themselves to us, to the collective that operates out of this host life. Maybe 10 or 15 years ago, they identified themselves as minors because they dig down through sediment of energy that is beneath us.
That's true.
And we've been working with them to try to dig down at Leo's request to see whether or not there is still light below somewhere. We're digging through those big caverns of fat, and somebody's asking about that. The fat seems to accumulate as a result of selfish, greedy societies. Why do you ask? Now there's more airflow.
That's true.
Quick, before they start arguing again, would you be willing to read the first question from our volunteer?
What are you seeing?
What are you seeing? I see out the eyes of somebody. I see big hands, male hands, and they're big fingers, and moving away what looks like packing material off of a glass, slightly domed something. I can't quite tell what it is. It's glass and slightly domed, and he's pushing things off of it. It's very dirty. It's filthy. It doesn't look like it's been cleaned in many years.
That's true.
Very dusty. It doesn't look like anybody has tried to look through this portal in many years.
That's true.
That's my interpretation, and I think some Windex would be good. So we are just energetically cleaning this, and I feel little scrub brushes going, which would strongly suggest that light beings known as tiny hands are there kind of cleaning for this presence, who very kind of like graciously and benevolently sits back and lets them clean it.
Yes, that's true.
Some might say lazily sits back and let them clean it.
That's true.
And when we look through his eyes, and he is still letting us see the view through his eyes, I don't see anything really. It just looks like hazy glass. It looks dirty. Maybe the underside of the portal is equally dirty. I don't know. It looks like a magnifying glass that's so dirty that we can't see through it. That's what it looks like.
That's true.
Somebody's asking, and whose view is this? I would say this is the view of a standard rank and file guide. This person does not feel Vanavanavi.
That's true.
He does not feel like a light being, and he is offended at the thought that he's a dead person.
Very offended.
So I would say he's a standard guide, a standard guardian angel, rank and file guardian angel. Why do you ask?
Why do you ask?
Now I see a Leo.
I see a Leo.
A Vanovanov, and in my personal opinion, one of the very best of the Vanovanovs. The best of the best of the best. One of them. Leo, what do you see? He's saying something, and it's in a language of music. He's talking about the sight that music gives us, and about how it is for blind people who have no eyes, but they can still come to know what something looks like with their hearts.
That's true.
And he says this is how it is in these troubled times, in these dark times. Those of us who can see with our hearts can still see, and those who are depending on vision are out of luck.
That's true.
Thank you, Leo.
Thank you. Does the eclipse change anything from your perspective?
Leo is laughing, and he's holding up a tiny grain of sand, so small it's almost a speck of dust.
That's true.
And he's saying, now, get prepared for the earthquake. And he's kind of chuckling, and he drops it, and it hits the floor.
It's true.
Having no discernible impact.
No.
And he says that's how it is with an eclipse. And he's saying from my perspective, but he means from his perspective where he is, it's an irrelevancy with regard to perception. However, he's pointing down, and he's pointing to our dead friend, one of our many dead friends of this host life.
Yes, that's true.
Who was the subject of some support just this morning, the session this morning. He's saying, why don't you ask John?
Does the eclipse change anything from your perspective?
What are you talking about?
Yeah, and he's laughing.
Says. What are you talking about? Never mind, we were just passing on a question, that's
Never
all.
mind.
Sorry to bother you. Keep going.
Now he's walking away.
Yes. Somebody's asking us to summarize, and the town crier steps up. There are these presences in many dimensions who summarize what's been happening.
That's true.
And the town crier says, from the lower astrals to the hall of the vaunted Vinavanas, that's what he says.
Yes.
Eclipses do not make a difference. And then he looks up and says, why do you ask?